Today is the first anniversary of the October 7th Hamas terror attack in Israel that sparked the Gaza war.
As Israel launches fresh offensive in Gaza, let's take a look at how 1 year into the war has reshaped the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
For more on this, we're now being joined by Colonel Daniel L. Davis from Sterling, Virginia. He's a military expert and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Welcome to World DNA, Colonel Davis. Now,
Thanks for having me.
On October 10th, 2023, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared war and said that Israel did not start the war, but it will finish it. 1 year later, Israel is not only battling with Hamas, but other regional players in West Asia. And the latest, Netanyahu said that it is going to be a long war. According to you, Colonel Davis, where do you see the war stand at this point of time, with Netanyahu also clearly saying that Israel is battling on 7 multiple fronts?
Well, listen, I mean, I've been saying this really since the beginning of this war on your network here, that Netanyahu has embarked his country on a political objective to bring peace and security to the people of Israel using military means that cannot succeed. And now here we see a year later, not only has he not succeeded in the Gaza Strip, that war still rages on to this day, but now that it's expanded to a total of 7 different theaters and is on the verge of exploding in a major war against Iran. And listen, it doesn't matter how strongly Netanyahu may say some words, there's just an enormous military task in front, and I don't see any path to victory against the Houthis, against the Hamas, against Hezbollah. That's an even more difficult one, and especially against Iran if they go ahead and launch into that. And now then they've also been fired into Syria earlier today. So you see the target list just keeps expanding, but there's no path to victory in any of them. So it's really hard to figure out what Netanyahu's actual objective is.
Right. That being said, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu has also said a lot of things. He said that he's going to go into war with or without Western powers. Of course, this comes after President Macron halted the use of or supply of weapons to Israel. Where do you think U.S. now stands, and how far do you think U.S. can support Israel in this war where it's extended to Lebanon, and Lebanon is becoming more like Gaza?
Well, yeah, it's actually not becoming more like Gaza. It's only in terms of the destruction, but it's a much bigger military task than the war in Gaza, because it is a war of maneuver against an army that actually has the chance to fight back in a coordinated manner, because they've been preparing for this for many years. That's why I say it is a much more difficult task that's been set. And listen, you asked the right question, because how long can the United States fund this and support it, not just with cash, but with ammunition? And that is an open question, because the United States is already getting into the meat and into the bone of its own arsenals, especially when you're talking about interceptor missiles, which are absolutely essential for the Iron Dome, the Sling, and the other air defense systems that the Israelis have. And we're already scraping the barrel trying to keep Ukraine supported. And the NATO admitted that about a month or so ago that we have about 5% of the air defense capabilities that we need on the eastern flank should that war expand. So it should be sending off a lot of warning bells in Washington that they can't just keep this open-ended thing going on supporting Israel for, quote, as long as it takes, because we're not sure that we have the inventory to meet that need along with whatever is going on in Ukraine.
But Colonel Davis, just to add to that, U.S. has said that further escalation is in no one's interest. That's a statement which just came out on the eve of Israel's war with Hamas. I want to seek your perspective on the aspect that, do you think that Israel's war goals have changed in the last 1 year? Earlier, it wanted to just eliminate Hamas, get the hostages back. But now we are seeing that it also wants to return the residents to the north of the country. How has all of this complicated the situation in West Asia and perhaps jeopardized bringing any ceasefire or peace in the region?
Well, yeah, I mean, the United States says it's not in our interest to expand the war, and that should be self-evident, but that's with words only, because when you see with actions, we have thus far not withheld any weapons. We have not required Israel to slow down what it's doing. We have not put any kind of limits on what we're going to give them, and that has allowed Netanyahu to continue on to go forward. But now that you see Macron in France is starting to put some limitations on there, and the patience of a lot of people is starting to wear thin, and especially if you talk about escalating into Iran with a full-blown war. One of the things we haven't talked about now is what Iran can do in return, and they have significant capabilities to hurt Israel through the air. They can also cause lots of damage in the region. They can disrupt oil, vital global oil transport. So there's a lot of difficulties that they can bring in there if the war expands further, which is in no one's interest in the entire region. So I think that you may start seeing a little bit more pressure, especially after Macron has made his move. You may start seeing more pressure on other regional players for Israel to find some kind of negotiated settlement that's less than everything they want, but to get the war over.
Right, 1 year on, we cannot but think of a ceasefire as soon as possible, but we don't know if we're getting to that. But thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel Davis, for joining us and giving your perspective.
Always my pleasure.